Alright folks, it's time for some practical HDFS. Uh, as promised, we would try to play around with the HDFS system to know the various ways in which we can create directories, put files into it, list files, put content, retrieve the content, and eventually delete the file. For this purpose, we would traditionally have to install Hadoop and then play around with the distributed file system that comes with it. Instead of that, we are going to use Hadoop on the cloud, which is what CloudX Labs provides. So I'm going to just access my Hadoop cluster using the web console here. Let me just click on that. Let me log in. Let me paste in my password and we are in. So essentially we are right now connected to the CloudX Lab, which is hosting the entire Hadoop stack for us. But today we are not interested in the entire stack. We are going to focus on HDFS. So when you are connected to the cloud where Hadoop is installed, or when you're connected to the Hadoop cluster, you basically have to log into a machine which has the Hadoop software installed. The way to check what Hadoop software, whether Hadoop software is installed or not, is as simple as typing the command Hadoop. Okay, so yeah, we got some output. So looks like Hadoop is installed. So now let's try to access the Hadoop file system. The way to do that is essentially to write Hadoop and then minus file system. When we do this, we are basically saying, sorry, it is Hadoop fs, not minus fs. When we do this, we are essentially saying that we want to access the file system component of Hadoop, which we learned is the Hadoop file system. So here when we run this command, it's actually showing us what are the various things we can do with the Hadoop file system. So let's get started. So we say Hadoop file system, and let us say the first thing we want to do is to list and see what files we have, which is done with the -ls command. So Hadoop is essentially uh, the command that we are running. Then we are instructing it to access the file system, which in this case is the Hadoop distributed file system. And we are telling the Hadoop distributed file system to execute the command ls within it and give us the output here, which is this. As you can see, I have some previously created files that are lying here on the Hadoop file system. I can see, there are three directories here. And then the last three are files because they do not start with D. So this is very similar to the Unix file system. So the Hadoop file system is actually a Unix compliant file system. So most of the commands, the output would look very much like running the actual ls command on a Unix file system like this. So if I run ls command, in fact ls-l in this case, the output would look very similar to how Hadoop has given us the output. So let's actually take a second and understand this. So when I do ls-l on this machine, I'm seeing a few files. But when I do Hadoop file system -ls, I'm actually seeing a different set of files. Why is that? The reason is when you do an ls-l, you are basically asking the local file system which is running on this machine to list all the files that are present in the current directory. Whereas when you run Hadoop file system -ls, you are asking Hadoop file system to list all the files that are present in the home directory of this user, but within the Hadoop file system, which is a distributed file system which is located on many machines. So now that we have that clear, why Hadoop file system -ls gives us a different output from the normal ls-l Unix command. let's move on and go to the next thing, which is to create a directory. So how do I create a directory in Hadoop? So you just say Hadoop file system minus mkdir. No surprises there. That's how you, mkdir is how you create a command on the local file system. But since you want to create a command on the Hadoop file system, we write Hadoop file system minus mkdir, and let's call it dir1. The name of the directory we want to create is dir1. Let's try this. All right, so looks like no error was given, so maybe a directory is created. How do we check? We use the previous ls command that we learned. So we do Hadoop file system minus ls, and let's see if we see an entry called dir1. All right, so we can actually see that we have created a directory with the name dir1. Now let's see what's inside the directory. To do that, we need to do Hadoop file system minus ls, but this time we do not want to list the home directory. Instead, we want to list the directory dir1 and see what's inside of it. And there's nothing because so far we haven't put anything. So now actually let's try to put a file inside that, inside the directory one. How do we do that? So first actually let's create a file on the local file system, which we would then transfer to the Hadoop file system inside the directory one. To do that, I will just create a file called file1 on my local file system, and I'll put some content into it. This is file1. This was created on the local file system. We will move this file into the Hadoop file system. But how do we do that? Let's see how we do that. So I save the file. So if I do a cat of file1, which basically will list the contents of a file called file1 on the local file system which we just created, we see that we get the content. So now how do we take this file called file1 and move it to Hadoop? So to do that, we need to do as usual Hadoop. Then we want to interact with the file system component, so we put fs, and then we use the minus put command, which is saying put the file that I'm going to give you, which is file1, and put it inside put it inside the dir1 with the name file1. So this command is saying Hadoop file system, please put file1 that I have in my local file system to directory1, and inside that name it as file1. Let's try to do this. All right, so no errors, so looks like something has happened. How do we see if the file has actually gone there? So we do Hadoop fs minus ls, we want to list directory1, and boom, we have a file here. And if you see, the name of the file actually has turned out to be dir/file1. Okay, so let's actually again put the file, but this time let me check. Okay, this looks good. I think this is correct. Now let's try to list this file. So what we need to do is, how do we retrieve the contents of this file to see if Hadoop has correctly put the file there? So we do Hadoop fs, and in this case what we want to do is to cat the file, which is essentially to print the contents of the file inside directory1 called file1. Let's see if that happens. Yep, so the file is all there. So what else can I see? I can see that the file has 133, is of size 133 bytes. So that is there. We know that the file was created at so and so date and time. I think the time is in GMT, and the file is inside directory1 and it's called file1. So now let's actually go ahead and try to make a copy of this file. How do we make a copy of this file? So Hadoop minus fs, and in this case we'll use the, sorry, not minus fs, it's Hadoop fs, and in this case we'll use the cp command. We'll copy, directory1 slash file1, and we'll make a copy inside directory1 itself, and we'll call it copy of file1. It's running, it has run. Now let us do the listing of the directory to see if we have two files inside it now. Both should be of the same size, and they are, which is great. We can also try to list the second file or cat the second file and see, you know, if it has the same content. Yes, it did. Awesome. So now let's delete the copy because we don't want to keep copies, because Hadoop already keeps copies for us. So we don't need this copy. Let's delete that. How do we do that? So to do that, we do simply Hadoop file system minus rm. Rm is the command which is remove. What do we want to remove? We want to remove dir1 slash copy of file1. Okay, there was some message, but looks like it actually deleted because this is an info message that Hadoop has printed for us. So let's now clear the screen and see what is the contents of the directory, what all is there inside the directory. It should just have one file, and it has just the original copy. That's all great. So today we learned how to create a directory, which was using the mkdir command. Then we learned how to, how to copy a local file from your local file system into the Hadoop file system using the command cp, using the command put, that is this command. So here we said Hadoop file system, please put file1 which I have locally into the Hadoop file system in the path dir1 slash file1. Then we learned how to retrieve the contents of the file, which we did this way. We asked the Hadoop file system to cat the file present inside directory 1 called file1, and then we learned how to delete the file using the rm command. So we deleted the copy. Actually, we also learned how to create a copy, which was using the copy command, like this. All right, folks, that ends the practical HDFS session. Hope you are now confident with the basic commands of Hadoop.